Thanks very much for that very warm welcome, Ron. Can I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and I pay my respect to their elders past and present. To Ron Gossey, as indicated by Ron, I've known him in a number of different ways, and it's always been a pleasure in dealing with Ron. He's very sensible, he's pragmatic, and more importantly, he's very passionate about everything that he does, so thanks very much. And I congratulate you for taking on this very important role. Can I also acknowledge Margot Foster, the previous chair, obviously did a great job. This is a hard task. When you're in charge of such an important sector, there are always pressures on you to perform, to make sure that you're ahead of the game. And that's exactly what Margot did in her time when she was the chair, of course. To Michael Sholly, the interim CEO, Vic Sport board members, indeed all of you that are here today, welcome tonight. But I particularly want to make acknowledgement of the presidents and CEOs of state sporting associations and other peak organisations, the voting panel and award nominees and their family, friends, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I think Ron hit the nail on the head when he indicated that it is because of you that we have these very important titles. It's because of the hard work that you put into this very important sector is the reason why we're the sporting capital of the world. And I think it's important to acknowledge that there are close to 4 million people in Victoria, which is a very high rate in terms of when you compare that nationally. Just under 4 million people that actually participate in sport and recreation in some way, shape or form. And that's a tremendous amount of people that are being active and it's because of the hard work that you do is the reason why this is happening in Victoria. It's also an industry within itself. It's worth about 65,000 jobs associated to about an $8.5 billion industry. And that's significant. And when you consider that the economic value of sport and recreation is not just in terms of the value within it, but also the peripheral. And it is about very much, if you keep people fit, healthy and happy physically, you're more likely to keep people fit, healthy and happy mentally. And I think that's the important part of the work that you do. There are some 16,000, as I understand it, sporting organisations within this wonderful state, of which 9,500 facilities that service those organisations. But importantly, it's the 600,000 volunteers that we have, which make these sporting organisations run from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. And can I just ask for a big round of applause for all of those volunteers that make this happen, please? So we've achieved a fair bit, and I'm proud to say that as the Minister for Sport and Recreation, and I want to acknowledge, of course, Nick Fowler and Justin Burney who are here, Jason and Desiree, and the whole Sports and Rec team who have done a tremendous job in making sure that we are front and centre when it comes to funding from our government. So it's calculated, I think we're up to about $800 million have been invested into sport and recreation and infrastructure widely. But importantly, there are about $420 million that we've invested in grassroots community sporting clubs infrastructure. That is significant. That is significant that it has never happened before. And why do we do that? Because we understand the value of it. And Gerald Rector is here, of course, the CEO of Vic Health, that every dollar, and I've managed to make sure that our Health Minister and Jill Hennessy understands this, and she certainly does, that every dollar that we invest in sport and recreation, of course, we get $4 to $5 back in the prevention of health issues in our hospital system. So it's a no-brainer when you consider that that of course when you invest within sport that you get the outcomes that you want in terms of physically and mentally being healthy. And so I think I'm really proud, I know I'm really proud of the investments that we've been making as a government into this very important sector. But our job is not done. As Ron alluded, this is a very important year. It's an election year, and we've got one more budget left. In terms of being in government, and of course there is also one election commitments left, which is 2 budgets in reality. And so I'm confident that that we'll be breaking the $1 billion barrier. When you look at all of the achievements in the last 3 years, the one standout, and I've got to say this was the pinnacle of our policy position leading up to the last election, is that we saw an unfairness in our sporting culture. And that was the lack of understanding for the needs of the female population, which is 51% of our population, which are female. And you know, they are excluded from basically playing and participating in sport like the men. Like my wife and I, we have 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. It's easy finding a sporting club for my 4 boys, but it's really hard finding a sporting club to accommodate my daughter. And, you know, that has always stuck with me. When she was 12, she wanted to play football, Aussie rules, and there were no female teams to play for. And so she played for a boys' team. So that meant that she got changed at home, she couldn't have a shower and interact with her teammates like you would normally expect children to do. And I thought that was totally unfair. And so what we needed to do as a government is focus in on what we can do as a government to change that, to turn that around. And we have. I'm pleased to say, and I think most of you would know in this room, that the numbers of females coming back to sport is phenomenal. Whether we're talking about cricket, football, soccer, basketball, hockey, you name it. And I can go through the list of numbers of women coming back to sport. It's actually, you know, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it, because it's working. If we build family-friendly, female-friendly change rooms, they will come. They will play that sport at that sporting club, you know, and we're seeing it. And we promised before the last election that we would dedicate some $10 million out of $100 million dedicated to sport for female change rooms. And that was a policy that was well regarded. Whenever we had a sports ministers meeting nationally, every other sports minister around the state wanted to copy exactly what we were doing here. So South Australia have the identical policy as we do. Queensland have also started that very important policy as we have. So look, it's great to do it. It's great to copy other states. If I see something that another state's doing which is good for sport and recreation, I would copy it too. And so we're up to $14 million. And clearly, you know, I've travelled right across the state in making those wonderful announcements to ensure that regional and country Victoria, particularly with the various programs that we have, do not miss out on that very important funding for female change rooms. Of course, we've made another very important decision in making sure that we understand as a government and as a department that we have a dedicated person looking after ensuring that our policies and government are focused in on that very important policy. And I'm pleased to say that Dr. Bridie O'Donnell, who's here, has done a tremendous job looking after the Office of Women in the Sport and Recreation Department. Now, we thought, you know, we can't just talk about this. We've got to actually hit the ground running and make sure that we do the right thing in terms of a government, that we concentrate on this very important area. And I know that, you know, a fantastic cyclist that she is, she's had her challenges both on the track and off the track in terms of, you know, being a male-dominated, traditionally, a male-dominated sport. And that's changing. When you look at the AFLW, we have now over 358 teams, that are female teams that have come on board. And we have now, because of the wonderful nature of cricket, we have 87,000 females playing cricket, which is an increase of about 50%. When you look at hockey, when you look at the rugby sevens, you know, like all of our national teams, women's national teams are performing really well, which means, of course, that they inspire. All of those elite athletes that play, whether it's the Southern Stars, the Matildas, the Vixens, you know, the AFLW, or any of those, you know, teams that are so performing so well. Whenever I watch them, I am inspired by some of the things that I see in terms of the talent on the pitch. And so this is about making sure that we continue our pressure. I don't care, like I do care, of course, at the end of the year there's an election, but I wish that the opposition would have a bipartisan approach to this very important issue. And so that, and obviously, you know, if we win again, I'd be very happy. But if we don't, then clearly there's another party that would take up the reins that we started, which is so important. It is about the legacy. Look, I don't want to go on for too long, but I just wanted to say there are 19 nominations, as I understand it, tonight, and all of the nominees, indeed, you're all winners. You're all, whether you come up stage here and you're presented with an award or not, but collectively you're all winners. As a result, we're all winners. I thank you very much and good luck tonight. Thank you.